Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Romanian on the home side, half French on the away side, and out of the two breweries involved in this one, it's only the Romanian brewery that's featured on the channel before. The French brewery is completely new to me. So when it comes to the Romanian brewery, these guys are a very well respected and very well established name within the Romanian craft beer scene, one of the real pioneers of Romanian craft beer in fact. And if people were to ask me about that brewery, I would say that they are very solid all round. They do lots of different styles, and basically you can pick a style of beer that you enjoy, and this brewery will give you a very good interpretation of that style. Now when it comes to the French brewery, from what I gather, these guys are another relatively new addition to their local beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last few years, and it does seem as well that these guys do a wide variety of different styles. So this is definitely a brewery that I need to explore a little bit further, but we don't get too much in the way of French beer out here in Hong Kong, so that's something I will need to check out when I get back over to Europe. But yeah, the beer that we're going to have a look at from them today is a release a few months ago from the Romanian brewery. It's a style that I haven't tried from either brewery, of course, a style that I've noticed is coming back into fashion a little bit. I'm seeing more and more of these being produced, which is great, and it is a style that I really quite enjoy. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well, and definitely cool to do my first Romanian-French collaboration here on the channel as well. So yeah, for this one then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Romania. We're going to go to the Bucharest area, but we're going to go a little bit to the south of the city to a place called Jilava, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Hop Hooligans. So this particular beer is called Gothic Noir. It comes in at 8% ABV. It's an Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, Black IPA, and this one is brewed in collaboration with Les Intenables Les Intenables, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Been a long time since I did my French. Les Intenables, who are from Rosheim in Alsace in eastern France. So yeah, my first time encountering Les Intenables. That's going to take a while for me to get used to pronouncing, but I've heard very, very good things about them. They do a lot of different beers from what I understand. But yeah, my first black IPA from Hop Hooligans, if I'm not mistaken, and this is a style that I do quite enjoy. I will tell you as well, I have had this beer for a couple of months. It's one that kind of got pushed to the back of the cupboard a little bit, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. I love a good black IPA, and it seems that this one is one of the more kind of old school West Coast type ones, which is relying mostly on barley malt rather than having the wheat and the oats in there. So yeah, I do prefer the more barley malt leaning black IPAs as opposed to the wheaty and oaty ones. I think you just get a bit more flavour and a bit more of a balanced flavour at that from the more barley malt leaning ones. But yeah, this should be really interesting. My first encounter with Les Intenables, and always go to try new things from Hop Hooligans as well. So let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hop Hooligans, and my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Les Intenables. My very first time encountering these guys, as I've mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Romanian playlist and the French playlist. Both of those are being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but not as often as I would like, in all honesty. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Hop Hooligans first off then, since they are the home brewery in this case. So yeah, Hop Hooligans, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Jilava, which is just to the south of Bucharest, the Romanian capital, and the company has been active since 2016, and it was founded by Cristian Minhardinu and Mircea Georgescu. So the story of Hop Hooligans began when Cristi and Mircea teamed up with a guy called Petre Ion, who was the founder of Beer O'Clock, one of the first craft beer bars in Romania. But after about a year after the launch of the brewery, Petre sadly died in a car accident of April 2017, and after this, times proved to be really quite hard for the company, but thankfully they managed to persevere, and they've gone on to come back strong from that and do very, very well. So they built a reputation for themselves early on by brewing a wide variety of different styles, and also by doing a lot of collaborations with other breweries both in Romania and further afield. But in 2018 they started canning their beers, and so they became the first brewery in Romania to do this, and the following year they partnered up with Beretta, one of the other real pioneers of the Romanian craft beer scene. They partnered up with Beretta to organise Haze Fest, which was the first Romanian craft beer festival. Fast forward to September of 2020 and they opened up their own tap room in Bucharest, and they've been working to increase the capacity of the brewery over the last few years, and also getting their beers distributed across the world, and that's why we're getting them here in Hong Kong. Of course, it's pretty cool that we get Romanian craft beer all the way out here. But they've continued over the last few years to build up the brewery infrastructure, develop new recipes and things, and as of September 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 510 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And as I mentioned to you earlier, these guys do a wide variety of different styles. They always tend to be pretty damn solid, so you can pick a style of beer that you enjoy, and Hop Hooligans will give you a very nice example of that style. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Hop Hooligans for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Untappd page as well to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go to the French side of things then, and I will apologise in advance for any bad French pronunciations in this one. It's been a very long time since I did French at high school. Of course, Swedish is quite natural to me these days, and my German is a lot better than my French, that's for sure. But anyway, to tell you a little bit about Les Intenables then. So Les Intenables are based in Rosheim in the Alsace region in eastern France, and the company was founded back in 2020, and three founders are Julien Brand, Alice Godet and Jérôme Laut. I hope again those pronunciations are right. But at the time of foundation, Julien had owned a beer bar in Aubernay called Les Intenables. Hope again the pronunciation. But he owned a number of other hospitality businesses as well, and he wanted to start his own brewery. But Jérôme has a background in brewing, and he's worked for several breweries in the Alsace region, including a spell at the Kronenbourg brewery, who are of course pretty well known. But Alice has a background in engineering and microbiology, and she also worked at Kronenbourg for a number of years as well. So Jérôme and Alice were obviously colleagues together at Kronenbourg, and they wanted to start their own venture, and apparently they met Julien when they were looking at a defunct brewery in Mundelsheim near Strasbourg, and this had become available, and they decided that they would join forces and start the company together. So they restored the original brewery, added in some new infrastructure, and the first beers were released from Les Intenables in March of 2020. So they received some funding from the EU Regional Development Fund, and so in 2022 they moved to a larger site in Rosheim, which allowed them to scale up their production quite significantly, and these days they've got two bars called Bar Les Intenables, which can be found in Aubernay and Haguenau, and they've got another one called another cave, which in French basically means that it's like basically a store, if you like, La Cave they would call it, I believe. This one is called La Cave des Intenables, and you'll find that one in Dorlesheim in Alsace. And as of September 2025, when I'm producing this video for you, these guys have produced 170 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, which is a pretty good return when you consider how long they've been going. And again, these guys seem to do a wide variety of different styles, and their beer has been very, very well received. So yeah, hopefully I can do a solo brewery beer review from these guys at some point soon. I always like trying different French beers. France is a very good craft beer country, but of course it's overshadowed a little bit by the fact that France is considered a wine country by many. But yeah, when it comes to the wine countries in Europe, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Slovenia as well, Romania can be counted within that too. And when they do try their hand at making beer, it always tends to go pretty damn well for them. So yeah, French craft beer is something that I would always recommend to people, and Les Intenables seem to be another brewery that's making a pretty good name for themselves. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Les Intenables for the moment. Again, apologies for the bad French pronunciations. If you want to learn more about these guys, check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Untappd page too to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. I can breathe now that we've got the French stuff over with, because I was worried about that my pronunciation would be awful. But yeah, anyway, let's focus on the beer itself. The artwork on this one, I have to say, is pretty damn cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of V for Vendetta almost, actually, so that was quite interesting. But yeah, as always with the Hop Hooligans beers, it tells you a little bit about this one on the side. We'll come to that in a minute. You can see plain silver top on the can there. It is a ½ litre. There you can see the Hop Hooligans symbol at the top of the can. Les Intenables on the other side as well. Double Black IPA, and then yeah, Gothic Noir. So yeah, the little blurb on the side of the beer here tells you, it says, flashes of light gallop through dark alleys, tiptoe on cobblestones and creep around sharp corners, but shadows can't really make a sound, can they? They flash and scatter muted across the stonework, with those short seconds of life revealed to the world only by just a passing rattle of thunder, kept alive just moments more by the grace of a creaking, dimly lit lamp. They end as abruptly and tragically as the stories that spawn them, shrouded in darkness, gloom and heartache. So yeah, I'm guessing that it's a tribute to the genre, if you like. Gothic Noir is a genre of story, if I remember correctly, and also I think a style of artwork too. But yeah, the malt base in this one is Golden Promise Munich T50 Carafa Special Type 3, and there's also a bit of cinema in here, which is usually used to darken beers from what I understand. And the hop profile on this one is Simcoe and Mosaic. I think it said those two were used in the Whirlpool, but then there's a bit of dry hopping with Azaka, Eclipse and Citra in this one. So we know all of these hops quite well. All of them except Eclipse are American. Eclipse is from Australia, but Simcoe is about 12% alpha acid. It's going to give you a lovely kind of passion fruity note. In a black IPA though, it's going to give you some lovely kind of blackcurranty, blackberry notes. It's a very versatile hop, in fact. Mosaic is about 14% alpha acid. It's known for that wee touch of earthiness and that big tangerine orange. Azak is an interesting one, about 14% alpha acid as well. Gives you quite a pineapple-y and orangey kind of character from what I remember. Citra, 14% alpha acid, mostly mangoes and quite a little bit of a lemony, limey character, but in a black IPA it kind of gives you this more, yeah, it gives you a bit more of an oily mango in honesty. And Eclipse is a very interesting hop, about 15 or 16% alpha acid from Australia. It's known for its big kind of almost like mandarin-y orange qualities, and it's also quite kind of piney and resinous from what I remember too. But yeah, should be really interesting. This one, as I say, an 8% Black Double IPA, this one, and the malt base in this one is more kind of barley malt leaning. Like I said, a number of breweries these days have done black IPAs with wheat and oats, but I think the old school barley malt leaning ones tend to work better. At least that's my opinion. Let me know what you think about that in the comments section below. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. There we go. This one got a little bit excited, but yeah, we can get it out and have a proper look at it. I'm just going to be careful with it that the head doesn't get too excited, because there was a little bit of pressure on this can. As I said to you earlier, this one is not the freshest of Hop Hooligans beers that I've had before, but yeah, we'll just need to deal with that. I'm sure it'll still be good anyway. But yeah, we've poured maybe about 50% of the beer out and into the glass, and you can see it looks pretty much as you would expect from a black IPA. So before the head disappears, we can see that it's got about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say medium, yeah, kind of medium fawn coloured head there. You can see some more medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, a few kind of foamier ones, a more soapy kind of head the further up that you go. But there's a lovely, yeah, there's a lovely, just kind of the shade of that. I think fawn is a very good descriptor for this one. But yeah, nice medium-sized bubbles on the surface liquid there. A few soapier ones the further up you go, and you can see a couple of carbonation bubbles just sticking towards the side of the glass there, and a few coming up and kind of breaking the surface. That head is of course going to fade away and just leave a thinner foamy layer, but you're going to get that ring around the edge of the glass. Now, colour wise, this beer is definitely a sort of lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelize, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the IPA style category. When we shine the light through this one, we do get a little bit of that kind of Coca-Cola, Pepsi sort of coloured edge to it. This one is of course barley malt, mostly, well, pretty much all barley malt in fact in the malt base, so you're not going to get that kind of opacity, the opaqueness that you would get from the New England ones actually. So yeah, it looks nice, and it looks pretty much as you would expect from a black IPA. So yeah, I think the way this one appears is nothing surprising when you consider what style of beer this one is, and you can see the head has faded away that little bit. So let's have a wee look at the aroma on this one then and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this beer actually. So let's do that. We've said everything we need to about the appearance. Aroma time. Right, okay, this one, it smells pretty nice. The black IPAs, as I've said many a time, these beers, they can have very interesting aromas, but you get a lot more complexity out of these beers in the flavour. So this beer, it has got a nice little bit of complexity to the aroma, but I still think we're going to get a lot more out of it in that flavour. But it's kind of giving you everything you expect. You've got that nice kind of pungent green component. I think this one is going to have a wee bit of bitterness to it. You've got a nice oily fruity character, and it's actually kind of citrusy in that sense too. And then yeah, you've got the lovely kind of roasty, toasty, malty backbone. I think it's great. Yeah, I like the way that this one, I do like the way that this one goes together actually. Yeah, I think we can just break this down and describe it for you more in depth as we always do. But yeah, the carafa is very obvious in this one. It's, yeah, we'll come to that a bit later on. But yeah, the backbone of the beer then, you've got that lovely roasty, toasty, kind of well-fired bread crust in there, but it's not too aggressive. Carafa malt is not as aggressive as say like Special B or Black Malt or something like this. So you've got that roasty, toasty backbone in there. There's a little touch of woodiness to this one as well. I do get more woodiness the more that I smell out of this beer actually. Could be coming from one of the hops of course a little bit. So yeah, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. A nice little bit of woodiness in there. Some Jacob's cream cracker. Lovely little bit of almost rye bready type character to this one, but not too much. There's some wholemeal brown bread in there. I do actually get a little bit of white bread out of this one because there's Munich malt in it as well. And then on top of that, you start smelling the little bits of brown sugar. So there's definitely a wee bit of like toasty brown sugar coming out of the beer. Definitely some McVitie's digestive biscuity notes as well. There is a wee bit of a sweeter, oily caramel in there. You kind of expect that when the beer is 8%, as this one is. And yeah, I do like that actually. The malty base, this one, the more it kind of opens up and warms up a wee bit, I think yeah, you do start to get more and more sweetness out of this one. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really very, very nice. Yeah, lovely. So on the malty side of things, I think that's all we really need to say. But with the yeasty side of the beer, you get more of the yeastiness at the back of the nose. I do get a little bit of a kind of more brown bready character out of it. It's a wee bit of a toasty, almost buttery bready note that comes out of the yeast actually. So yeah, wholemeal brown bread in there, a little bit of a toasty, buttery sort of bread, and then yeah, you've got that little bit of bread crust and things in there. Again, I think we'll get more complexity out of that in the flavour. But yeah, let's talk about the hoppy side of the beer then. So As I've often said, or as I nearly always say in my IPA reviews, there are 3 types of hoppings that you can do when it comes to brewing an IPA. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour or so of the wort boil. That's responsible for the vast majority of your bitterness, and it's going to give you a more oily, deep, dank type quality. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of your wort boil. A little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma. But yeah, it's going to give you a very bright green component. Then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, is all about flavour and aroma, and again it's going to give you a very kind of bright green component. So the West Coast IPAs are going to use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they're deeper, danker and more oily. Black IPAs of course started off with the same sort of mentality in that sense, but then you've got the New England IPAs, which rely mostly on late addition and dry hopping, so that's why they're kind of softer and more juicy if you like. And as I say, I've seen black IPAs too that have wheat and oats in the malt base, and they do have a lot of they don't really use early addition hopping. But this one, just from the aroma and the depth and dankness that we've got here, this is a more West Coasty leaning black IPA, if we can call it that. So yeah, with this one you can smell a little bit of earthiness in the green component. You do get a little touch of an almost kind of pine resiny note coming out of it as well. Lovely floral aromaticity. It's not spicy, but it's kind of oily and does have a wee bit of a prickle to it almost. And yeah, there's a wee bit of that, there's definitely a wee bit of nice kind of zesty grassiness in there. So yeah, green component's kind of what you'd expect if you know these hops. Eclipse is the one that I'm probably least familiar with in this beer. The other ones, yeah, Azaka after that, but then the other 3 are pretty common in fact. But yeah, the fruity side of this one I think is really nice. I find this one to be very sort of orangey leaning, and when you've got Mosaic, Eclipse and Azaka in there, that's kind of a bit of a given. So yeah, big orangey, oily, mandarin-y notes coming out of the beer. And then yeah, you have the yeah, behind that you've got a little bit of a sort of mango-y, yeah, you've got a little bit of a mango-y note. There's a wee bit of apricot in there as well, and you've got a sort of oily, peary kind of character to it also. So yeah, the way that everything kind of pieces together in this one, I think, is really very, very nice. So yeah, the aroma of this one I think is great. As I always say, just take a wee bit of time to enjoy that before you get stuck into it. But yeah, I think we can have a taste of this one now and just see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Gothic Noir, an 8% Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, Black IPA from Hop Hooligans in Jilava, Romania, and it's brewed in collaboration with Les Intenables, who are from Rosheim in Alsace in France. So let's do it. Slàinte, skål, cheers, Norok, Santé. Let's do it. Ooh, that's pretty nice actually. As I said earlier, this one is not in its prime. It's not the freshest, but if we can just get that in, there we go. I will say it is pretty damn nice actually. There's a wee bit of excess kind of bitter, well, not excess is maybe not the right word, but it does feel, you can feel a little bit in the hops with this one. It's just got that little bit of extra kind of bitter, spicy kind of character that you get when something's, you know, with the West Coast IPAs, when they get a little bit beyond their prime. You're getting a little bit of that out of this one, but otherwise this beer is really nicely balanced. Yeah, you've got that hoppy bitterness in there, you've got the roasty toasty malt backbone, but the sweetness is there, and you've also got that lovely oily fruity character. So I'll just say to both Hop Hooligans and Les Intenables, it's done a pretty damn nice beer here. I struggled actually to get information on Les Intenables, but AI managed to help me locate the sources and have a read at things. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. You know, it's actually helping a lot with making notes for these videos these days. But yeah, you know, both breweries I think have done a nice job of this. So we need to try some of Les Intenables' own beers. Hopefully we can do that soon. But yeah, lovely black IPA this one, that's for sure. Does give you everything you would want from the style. So yeah, Let's break this beer down then and describe it for you a bit more in depth, as we always do. Middle third of your palate. So the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely roasty toasty, well fired bread crust in there. As I say, it's not too aggressive because it's Carafa that's in this one, but yeah, it does have a little bit of that dryness, especially into the aftertaste, so you can feel that there. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a more woody kind of character coming out. So you've got the roasty toasty well fired bread crust, you've got a layer of like kind of Jacob's cream cracker kind of sitting on top of that, and I would say you can feel above that there's a slight layer of like an almost grainy rye bready kind of character in there, but the next layer up is a more wholemeal brown bready sort of note, and above that you get a more fluffy kind of white bready character coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, the malty backbone in this beer, the bready side of things, is kind of what you'd expect with the Munich malt and with the Carafa and things. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. On top of the on top of the white bready character, then you start to get the you start to get the more kind of brown sugary notes out of the beer. So there's a layer of a kind of toasty brown sugar there, and it's well fired isn't the right word, but yeah, you've got that nice kind of slightly toasty, slightly dry actually brown sugary character there. Then on top of that toasty layer, you can feel that oily circle in the middle of your palate. So that is of course the boozy part of the beer. So you've got that nice oily sort of caramelly note coming out of this one. So you've got that big oily caramelly sort of note in there. It's surrounded by a little bit of the McVitie's digestive biscuit. Then you've got that kind of toasty, well fired, toasty, slightly well fired brown sugary character underneath. So yeah, the way that that goes together in this one, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, the brown sugary side of things, toastiness, the bread, all of that, I think, is really, really nicely done. So, yeah, I do like how that, I really do like how that pieces together. Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the malt base in this one, to be quite honest with you. I think it's pretty straightforward that way. So let's go to the back third of your palate. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But remember, generally speaking, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You've got the kind of rye bread in the base, the wholemeal brown bread in the middle, then the more white bread on top. The base of that back third of your palate is like the really roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crusty notes in there. You've got the more, you've got a little bit of the crackery note on top of that. Then yeah, you can feel the rye bready layer that's in there as well. You get that, it's a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and dry. Then above that, you've got the more wholemeal brown bready character sitting above that, which again is a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and dry. Same with the white bready character sitting on top of all of that. But yeah, you can feel a little bit of the toasty brown sugary character just creeping over the top there, and above everything else you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that yeasty side of things then. So yeah, yeasty side of this beer. For me, the yeasty side of this one, it's interesting actually. At its core, it feels like it's a slightly more sweet, oily rye bread. Then it's surrounded again by a little bit of a sweeter wholemeal brown bread. Then there's just a little bit of a kind of brown bready bread crust there. So the yeast, interestingly enough, I think is balancing out some of the roastier characters. Because yeah, into the aftertaste, you get more of that roasty, toasty side of things from the malt base coming out. So the yeast in this one actually is mellowing the beer out, which is kind of interesting. It's almost boosting the sweeter side of the malt base. So yeah, that's an interesting point. So a rye bready, wholemeal brown bready sort of bread crust in this one. So yeah, definitely. Back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I think that's us covered the malty and yeasty side of the beer. So let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, back corners of your palate, you've got that nice little bit, the green component, you've got that little bit of earthiness in there. But as you move further forward, you can feel there's a little touch of kind of pine resin in there, not too much, but as you move further forward from that, it gradually mellows out to be more of a kind of floral aromaticity, and it's maybe a little touch spicy around the front corners of your palate. As I say, that might well be because of the age of the beer, if you like, but it's still fine. And then round the front curve of your palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, so it's kind of oily in a sense, and it's also got a little bit of a more sort of zesty type character coming out of it. So the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. So yeah, I think, yeah, this one, it does feel a little bit more oily into the aftertaste too, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, it's really nicely balanced. Roastiness from the malt base coming out, the sweet side from the yeast and the top of the malt base, and also just that little bit of hoppy bitterness. It's a really nicely balanced beer, this one, and that's the key thing, I think, for me with a black IPA. But yeah, let's focus on that front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. Rye bread in the base, the wholemeal brown bread in the middle, then the white bready character on top. The base of that, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust again, the Jacob's cream cracker, the rye bready notes, the wholemeal brown bread, the white bread, then yeah, some of the more toasty, brown sugary characters just sitting on top of that. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy, fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at those. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer is, you know, it's kind of what you'd expect from the aroma actually. This beer, for me, this beer actually is one where the aroma and the flavour that you get out of it kind of match, to be honest. What you would expect actually tends to transpire in this beer. So yeah, at the back, we talk about that oily bubble, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little tiny touch of grapefruit in there. That's going to be from the Citra. But as you move further forward from that, you get this mix of like oily mango and oily kind of passion fruit. And as you reach the middle of the front third of your palate, you just get a little tiny touch of like an apricot note underneath. But then you start to get the more orangey and kind of slightly red fruity notes in this one. So there's a wee slight touch of like fig or black currant in this one, especially when you take the beer in. So yeah, if you concentrate on the front third of your palate when you take the beer in, you get a little bit of a kind of black curranty. You get a little bit of a kind of black curranty or kind of slightly figgy note out of it. But then as the beer kind of mellows out, yeah, you get the mango and the passion fruity notes I was talking about, the wee bit of apricot, but then yeah, it really leans toward that more orangey, it leans toward that more orangey, oily, kind of citrusy note into the aftertaste. It's quite a zesty orange in all honesty. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like these orangey leaning IPAs in all honesty. But yeah, let's round off the review of this one with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. But this is, yeah, it's an old school West Coasty leaning black IPA, this one for sure, but it's really nicely balanced. So yeah, mouthfeel wise then. For me, This beer is kind of, I would say that it's kind of top end and mid-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. At the same time, it actually feels quite clean, like the mouthfeel is just really, really quite nice. In terms of the IBU count on this one's got to be about, 80. Yeah, it's got to be about 80 or 90 IBUs in honesty, and that's coming from a mix of the roasty malt in this one and also from the hoppy side of the beer. So yeah, maybe I want to say 80-ish IBUs in this one, but you can feel both sides of the bitterness coming out there. The malt base, as we said, it's a bit roastier underneath, not too aggressive, smoother in the middle, and slightly like a dry, toasty sweetness on top. And then yeah, you've got that lovely oily, fruity character in this one. A wee bit of a drier side from the tropical part of the beer, juicier from the red fruits when you take the beer in, and you've got that wee bit of kind of citrusy, oily orange which lingers into the aftertaste with this one. But all in all, a really, really nice black IPA, this one. I find it really nicely balanced. It gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. Been a really interesting one to try this. So yeah, this was the Gothic Noir, an 8% Black Double IPA brewed by Hop Hooligans in Jilava, Romania, in collaboration with Les Intenables, who are from Rosheim in the Alsace region in eastern France. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Les Intenables and from Hop Hooligans, and we'll see about doing some solo brewery beer reviews from Les Intenables, and I do have some more Hop Hooligans things to do for you quite soon as well, so keep your eyes peeled for those. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Lovely Black Double IPA from both of these breweries. So until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, Santé, and Norok. Ciao just now.